So, welcome to another episode of Healing Money Talks. My name is Emma Lucy Wall, and I invite you, as I always do, to put your mobile phone on airplane mode. Put the kettle on, make yourself a nice warm drink, find somewhere comfortable to sit and relax and listen deeply to the conversation that's about to unfold. You never know what you might hear. So, my very special guest today is Lisa Manfredi. Lisa has a background in neuroscience and sales. She's fascinated by how all things connect. Lisa worked in corporate for 10 years and she left to pursue a new path, although she wasn't exactly clear what the path was as she left. She discovered Sarah McCrum and Sarah's work while they was participating in Seth Godin's Alt MBA. Lisa wants to add context to people's lives, to afford them financial freedom by giving them the resilience they need to hold fast and to not be bounced around by life circumstances. Lisa, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me. This is great.
And I just wanted to ask you a little bit more, that last little sentence, giving people financial freedom by giving them the resilience they need to hold fast and not be bounced around by life circumstances. Can you expand a little bit about on what that means?
Yeah, I worked a corporate job for a long time and I did all the things I was supposed to do, but I had no idea if that would actually set me up well in life. I just had a paycheck and they would take pieces out of it and it would get smaller and smaller and it would be allocated to different areas where I was hoarding it away, hoping that when I needed the money, it would be there. And it didn't seem like much of a strategy to me. So I started studying like how does money work? Who's making the money? How do they do it? And what do rich people do? Not how do they become rich, but how do they stay rich? Because
Mhm.
I looked at generational wealth and there are people that made money a long, long time ago. And there's kids that are spending it that aren't necessarily adding to the wealth, but they're doing quite fine.
Yeah.
And with inflation and all the other factors, like it just never made sense to me. So I just started studying like what's actually possible. There's probably something out there, um, maybe a working light kind of thing that it's
Mhm.
not like mind blowing. It's just a basic tool that's available to all of us. We just don't really talk about it. So I started studying how does this all work? Why are we encouraged to do the things that we're encouraged to do? In the US, we have retirement plans that everyone is expected to check the box because that's the thing you do to set yourself up for retirement. But I studied how does the market work and how does hoarding money in my bank account work? And none of those seemed effective. So I found a tool that is seen not as an investment, but it has served as an emergency and opportunity fund to me, which has blown my mind because now I have a pot of money that is working for me and can work for me in multiple ways. So it comes out in the form of life insurance. So it's multiplying my money so that when something happens to me in life, my
Mhm.
money is passed on to someone else in a tax-free way. And in life, that money is liquid and available to me and earning tax free interest and dividends that compound. And if you've ever looked at a compound curve, it's pretty cool. It's pretty not cool, but over time, it's pretty amazing. So my money will compound over time, which normally in the environments that we're put into, it doesn't. We often work in a place where we save money, we spend it, and we save money and we spend it, or we start with nothing, we go into debt, and we try to get back to nothing. And then we go into debt and we try to go back because you have to live your life. You buy a car, you buy a house, you pay your rent, you buy food, whatever it might be. And we end life like hovering somewhere around zero after all of that work we put in, all the income we've earned. Like, what do we have to show for it financially? Well, if you put it in a vehicle, in this case, life insurance, it's earning tax free interest and dividends that compound over time, but it's also available to you. So I can pull that money out and I can put it into an investment. And the idea is I put it into an investment that cash flows and I pay myself back with the money that's from the cash flow from that investment. But my money continues to sit in my insurance account, earning these tax free interest and dividends. So it gave me some peace of mind that I never had before. Because before, if I made an investment or used my money in some way, we finance everything. So if you're using cash to do something, you use that money and now it's gone.
Yeah.
So if you failed at whatever you were planning on doing, which life circumstances happen, you can do all of the due diligence in the world, but sometimes it doesn't work out. So if you fail at your investment, now how are you going to, like, you just have to make more money now. So
Hmm.
maybe not the best strategy. Or if you borrow from someone else, from the bank, you're now on the hook to pay them back in a structured way that they've determined.
Yeah.
So, regardless of what happens to your investment, the bank's expecting their money back. So, if you can set up a more resilient way of being your own bank, earning money, having access to money, and borrowing that money from the insurance company in an unstructured way, it just gives a lot more flexibility. And so, it takes a lot of the stress that comes with most money talks in business, in my mind, out of it.
Hmm. You described this to me a few days ago, and I've been churning it over and over in my head and thinking, this almost sounds too good to be true. Um, is this like one of the best kept secrets in the financial world that if if we publish this, they're going to lock it down, or is it?
I think it's a good secret. It's something that most wealthy families do. It's something that all banks do. Bank owned life insurance is a big industry. Corporate owned life insurance is a big industry. Why is that? If banks and corporations are doing it, if the wealthy are doing it, and then on a more basic level, farmers have been doing this for over 150 years. This is how they would support their farms. During harvest time, they had a lot of money, but the rest of the time they didn't. So they'd borrow money from themselves, from the insurance company, and pay themselves back during harvest. So it's just, it was a standard way of operating. It was the original way to bank.
Mhm.
Um, I think part of the issue is that we always think there's a catch. We've been
Yeah.
trained to think like there's a catch, but it's very straightforward and it makes sense. It's not market based. Like they work on Main Street more than Wall Street, and they're trying to create a system that is sustainable over the long term. So a lot of time businesses will answer to short-term demands. They have to have a shareholders meeting every quarter, let's say. So they're going to do something every quarter that shows a good gain that may not serve them well in the long term. So it looks great today, but then they fold in a little bit of time.
Hmm.
Well, the insurance company contractually is obligated to pay out a death benefit when you pass away because you're buying life insurance. So they need to think on a very long term basis. So they actually consider underwriting. Underwriting is a big deal. We should all be doing underwriting. We should be doing underwriting in our businesses. We should be doing underwriting in our finances. We should do underwriting in our relationships. Like, what are we actually entering into? So I think having that big picture idea is really something that serves us all well.
Hmm. And what's the sort of investment that you need to make in something like this? Is it quite small? Can you?
It's scalable. It has to be considered an insurance product, so you have to pay a premium um, that makes sense for the death benefit that you're getting. But that can be $50 a month. It could be $50 million a month. It's all scalable. It's considered over a longer term, so there are parameters that you have to fit within. But you have to understand that it's not magic money. You have to have the money to borrow the money. So you would put the money in over time, it will start earning quite a bit. When you look at a compound curve, it will start earning quite a bit. But in the first few years, the bulk of what is, or all of what's in your account is going to be money that you've contributed. So it's a long term play. It's really considering how is this going to help me over the course of my life? How will it help my children and my grandchildren? And how do I set this legacy up so every generation doesn't have to start over? And I'm not putting my money in the bank where I'm losing money to inflation and I could be denied access to my own money. And I'm not putting my money in a market based thing, at least directly. You could do that eventually, but in a market based thing where I could lose everything when I need it and not have time to recover, as they say. I
Mhm.
want to earn. I want to continue moving forward. I don't want to be bounced around by conditions that are outside my control. I really want something that's inside my control. So yeah, completely scalable, thinking over a long term.
And so as it compounds, you could keep paying into it, and
You,
then
you can.
uh,
And if you outgrow the size of a policy that you started when you were young, you want to set it up for the size that you can support today. If you outgrow that, you can always open a new policy. You can open policies on spouses or business partners or anyone that has you have an insurable interest on. If you have a business, you should definitely have it on your business partner, because what if something happens to them?
mm,
What if their beneficiary would be their spouse, but their spouse doesn't know anything about the business? Or maybe it passes on to your children, but your children can't handle the tax burden that they'd be left with, so they'd have to liquidate the business. There are a lot of things to think about. So
yeah,
it's interesting that it is an insurance product that protects you in a lot of situations, but it also gives you all these living benefits that you can grow.
amazing, amazing.
It's cool, but also it's limited where in the world it's available.
Okay,
So
and
it's
you
not
know,
every country. Every country works a little bit differently. It's definitely the US, Canada, the UK, Australia, but other places we'd have to explore what that looks like.
mm, I'm fascinated by how to go about doing this. We have to have a conversation offline where I maybe you could be my broker.
It's also interesting. It is a life insurance product. So the insurance company has to make you an offer, and they base it on your age and your health and your, in this case, gender, because women live longer generally. So it is saying, like, hey, you get better rates if you're healthier. So it's encouraging people. It's not really encouraging people, but indirectly, like the better you manage your life and your health, you reap more benefits overall. So I think it's just a nice reminder.
Yeah, and you have that underpin of security,
Yeah,
and our health is probably our biggest asset.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Amazing. Now we've been talking offline quite a bit about the issues around the healing communities, the conscious communities, about how people, the last thing that they look at is money, and yet it's probably second after oxygen and water, one of the most important things that we interact with on a daily basis.
Yeah. So this is not something I did for a living, because I did the standard path and I went into a technical sales job, and I had more money than I ever needed. So I never thought about money. But then if I was asked a question, I was uncomfortable. I didn't know what to do. So I really wanted to understand how this worked and not just coast in life, not just be like, well, I have enough now, but actually be resilient and actually live in a life of abundance, instead of just allocating all of my funds to something for the future and crossing my fingers. And then, so when I left corporate America, I went on this path of my own. And one of the things I noticed is that I met more people that were exploring life and more freedom minded, and they were asking questions about, they were seeking truth in a lot of areas of life, but they weren't asking questions about the banking system. They weren't asking questions about how they were going to support their lives today and into the future. They were just surviving. And the reality is, there are tools out there, and it's just as important to know, if not more important to know about money than it is about everything else. Because if you have a mission in life, if you feel passionate about something, if you want to contribute to the world and you're worried about how you're going to eat or pay your mortgage or your rent, you don't have the capacity to be in the world and really make a difference,
Yeah,
because you're worried about basic survival. So if we can all help each other, this also means we really could help. It's not just necessarily a legacy thing. If I have financial resiliency and maybe I work a job and I'm okay with that, but I make way more money than I need, and I've set up this fund, this opportunity fund, and you need an investment on your business. Well, now you don't have to go to a bank. You can go to someone else in a conscious community and say, hey, this is the business I'm building. We could team up. You could provide the funds. This is how we'll work the repayment schedule, and you can build something together. So I think if the community worked together, it would be really powerful.
mm. I know you're very much about community and growing it. And we were talking as well about little clusters around the world of people who are really waking up to what could be next as we move through these curious times where
Yeah.
society is almost being broken down from the inside by what's going on at the moment, and all the possibility and potential for that is really very exciting.
It is. And I think sometimes people get stuck in the fact that you're using fiat currency to seed something like this policy. They're like, well, what if that doesn't have value in the future? And we could play the what if game all day long, but the reality is today it still has value. So if I touch it in a policy today, I can immediately take it out and put it into something that has more value, in my opinion. Maybe it's land, maybe it's food production, maybe it's precious metals, maybe it's cryptocurrencies, maybe it's your business, right? If I can seed your business today and that's going to impact more people, that impact will be the legacy that can make the difference when money doesn't have value. And you know what? If money continues to have value, now we have both of those things or all of those things.
Mhm. I love your thinking. But it's not just thinking though, is it? It's doing. I
It
mean
is doing. So
that
I've been doing this for a number of years and I have played this out. I know exactly how it works. It has worked the way I expected, which was an amazing thing in itself. We talked about how we often think there's some catch, there's something that we're missing, but it's very straightforward. It worked exactly the way I wanted it to, and it's provided me with it took away a lot of the weight on my shoulders that I worried about having enough, building enough, squirreling away enough. Like it just like I had to like hold on to it. I started using it, and so it really became an opportunity fund for me. It gave me the mental ability to look at everything and say, hey, there's an opportunity here for me. Now I can evaluate it. Like I could play here if I want. I can bring this to life. I can participate in this. And it made my money, it put it in motion. It really turned it into a currency that had value.
hmm you're quite proactive with money, aren't you? I know you have little gatherings around the what's it called? The cash flow game.
Yeah, so I host, there's a board game called Cash Flow, and I host that. I used to do it in person. Now we do it more virtually because it suits the world better at the moment, but it also engages a bigger community. And it's been fascinating playing with people because it teaches people that we're often chasing a paycheck or the next series of funding, and we're missing all the stuff in between. So how do we stop trading our time for money? How do we be more effective? How do we have our money work for us so we can put more out into the world? And also that we're not algorithms. We're not saying like, well, I have to do everything myself. That's the only option. It's like, well, hey, who else do I know? How
Yeah.
can I leverage their skills or abilities or resources? And how can we make this happen together? Like there's a lot more possible when you bring multiple minds together than all trying to do it ourselves and fighting each other. Like it's not a zero sum game. So I'm building communities of people that realize that are trying to build something bigger together and help each other. I also host these financial freedom chats
hmm
because we all need to have some level of understanding. We don't necessarily all need to go down the same in depth rabbit hole that I did, but I would love to share my knowledge so that it at least can give people the seeds so they can learn what they want to learn and they can take more control over their lives and then work on the things that they really love to do.
That sounds brilliant. How often do you run these? I want to come to one.
I do them weekly often.
Do you?
Yeah, and then the cash flow games, I'm trying to get some technology set up to be able to host that better more often.
Yeah, I know it's because you were saying to me you do it, you actually have the board, don't you? And you get people to move the pieces around.
Yeah, because you can play against a computer, but you miss the whole richness of the experience. You miss
hmm
people saying, well, did you think about this? Or, hey, do you want to go in with me? And it's like mind blowing to people what's possible. Because we're so used to, especially even in games, it's like we're supposed to win the game and we're supposed to follow the rules. And it's like, there aren't, just throw the rule book away. Like, who's going to yell at you? Like, what does it matter? Like, there's no rules in life. Like, why do we think there's always a rule book? And why do we assume that someone else created it for us? Why don't we make our own?
Yeah, and this feels like the time to be making these, to be throwing out the rule book, making doing things differently. working in collaboration, bringing all of these minds together. Because when we're on our own, we're actually quite impotent, really, aren't we?
Yeah.
We're just
Yeah.
sitting in our various rooms around the world on Zoom. But there are so many minds and hearts and spirits who are coming from the same place at the moment. We just need to we just need to join up, and that's a big part of why I've created this summit, is to for people to hear, oh my goodness, that's really something that I could get behind. That's somewhere where I would like to put my energy.
Yeah, I think we can learn a ton of stuff in isolation, but how does that serve anybody?
Mm,
And for me, it's empowering. The reason I started talking about money is because I put this into play for my own life and I just did it and it worked. And I've been financially free for a number of years, but I never found my passion. I never found what I was supposed to be doing in life. And I just started hanging out with people like me, people that are interested in finding truths and being challenged and learning new things. And I started just sharing what I've done in life and what's worked for me. And they were interested. And I was like, oh, there's something here. Maybe I was making it too hard. I was trying to find like the path that was already defined and I could just like drop myself into. But I think just sharing my experience has had a big impact on people's lives because now it makes it so it's like, oh, I can do this too. Like this is empowering. There's something possible for all of us. It's not like we're stuck in a system and that's just our lot in life. Like there's a lot of opportunity here.
that is so empowering, because I think people do really believe that they are just stuck in a system, and that that system is forever going to be ruling and running the show. And you're saying no. You're
Yeah.
giving us a way out.
We have a lot of figures on television here that talk about finances and they talk about it like getting out of debt and not having any debt. And I I think the people that follow those people, they're looking for an answer, but they find themselves stuck in the place where they are today. You're just always working within that system.
Mm,
And there are smart ways to leverage. So, debt is not necessarily a bad thing. Consumer debt can be a bad thing. You know, the intention behind where you're putting your money can be a bad thing, but there are ways to leverage and be smart about it and grow exponentially. And it's a mindset shift and a knowledge. Like we just need to share that knowledge with people.
I could listen to you talking about this forever, because you just bring this really fresh way of looking at things that, for me, I mean, I have to be perfectly honest, I don't completely understand. And
And it's a tool that's been around forever. It's not fresh.
no,
It's just chugs along. Like it does its thing, but it's shifts our way of thinking. I think it's not so much it's that the tool exists and now we can say, well, how can I interact now?
mm,
That's what changed everything. It gave me power in my own life with my own money. Normally, I don't have access to my own money. That's crazy.
that is
So
crazy.
something that's been around for a long time. I mean, it's life insurance. It's called having a death benefit. It's not very sexy sounding,
Mm.
but there are incredible living benefits and it's not seen as a taxable investment because the benefit is for someone else. It's not for technically for your life, it's to benefit someone else in the event that something happens to you. So it's a fascinating way to shift your way of thinking about things.
So so take my, if I were to be the person, so say I put, or, for argument's sake, your average healer is probably sitting there thinking, well, I could probably put about 50 quid a month or $50 a month into this. How does that work then? What that's money that they absolutely can do without, that would just go into this pot.
Yeah. So basically I look at it like what is the minimum I can contribute on whatever time frame you work on. Some people are monthly, some people are annually. So let's say the minimum amount I can contribute monthly. And on a good month or a good year, I can contribute this much more. And it'll give you kind of a range just of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't want to think about it like you're taking the money and you're paying a fee and you're not getting anything for it. Because you're paying the money, you're getting a death benefit. So you're multiplying your money that's contractually guaranteed. And over time, you're building interest and dividends. So over a number of years, every dollar you're putting in you're going to be getting a dollar plus out. So every dollar you're putting into these premium payments, you're
Hmm.
going to be getting a dollar plus in cash value. And you have the side benefit of when you pass away, your money will be multiplied in the form of a death benefit that's not taxable. So I'd think about that range and then you start contributing, paying premium payments. Most insurance agents sell you insurance because you ask for insurance. So they'll sell you insurance that is a very high premium and a very high commission to them. They often don't know about this feature and or won't offer it because it minimizes the commission. Basically, we're taking the commission away by reducing the required premium and increasing the money that's going toward your cash value. So what
Hmm.
we're trying to do is shove cash in this policy in a sheltered environment. In order to do that, we have to show that we have a certain amount of death benefit. So the cash that we're shoving in there is technically called paid up additions. We're paying up for additional insurance. So it's all linked together, but you want that additional insurance so it gives you this ceiling to put more money in. And people, insurance agents aren't paid on that portion of it, the cash value, but that's what we're trying to optimize here. We don't want to optimize the premium. We want to optimize the cash value that we're able to access. So it's sort of finagling the types of premiums to get you what you're trying to achieve. Sometimes people work the opposite way. They say, well, I have a business or a family and I want $2 million death benefit. What would those premiums look like? And how do we optimize them for cash value?
Right.
There's
Oh.
nuance to it, but it's all it's part of what I like. It's like putting all these pieces of this puzzle together, but it's a custom puzzle because everyone wants something different. Everyone's a different age. Everyone has a different health rating. Everyone has different family situations or business situations. So it's tailoring it to each person. It's not just a, like, I can't imagine going online and buying insurance because you're just going to get the product that everyone gets. And that doesn't even make sense.
And so, are the particular people that that know about this?
There are. They're usually people that are interested in doing something bigger. So I learned through real estate investing. It's like, well, I want to invest in real estate, but every time I buy a property, I need money for a down payment. Once I pay that money, it's locked up in that house. The bank has it and they're making money off of my money.
Right.
Well, if I had that money first touch my insurance policy, then I used it for an investment property, I could start paying myself back from the cash flow from the property. So now I'm not losing my money to the bank. It's not locked up in house jail. So I learned through people that are trying to do something bigger. So they're not just saying like, "Hey, I'm trying to sell you insurance." They're saying, "Well, hey, my market, the people I care about are the people that are doing something like private lending or building businesses and they want to fund their business or they want to fund educating their children in whatever way that looks like. Not the way that we're told to, but the way that looks like. Or I want to fund purchases of my own vehicles. I don't want to finance them through someone else. There are reasons to do all of these things, but you have to understand who you're working with and if they know what they're doing in your best interest. Because again, like the best interest of the insurance agent is to have a really high premium that doesn't accumulate cash value.
Okay. So, if
There's
somebody,
also a train of thought that there are other ways of insuring yourself. If you're just looking for insurance, you can get term insurance or something that is short term. Like you pay, you don't die, you don't get anything. You pay, you don't die, you don't get anything. And by the time you get older, that gets exponentially more expensive and it's cost prohibitive in most cases. And most people will stop their insurance and they'll have paid in most of their life. They stop paying their premiums and then they never receive a benefit.
okay. So, what are people's next steps, Lisa? How do we? We're beginning. Yeah, we're coming towards the end. What would you invite people to do from here? Connect with you. Connect with other
Yeah.
people.
I'd be
Form a
happy to talk
effort?
to people about what's possible, kind of your current situation, what you have in place, and explain how what I'm doing has worked for me and how it could work for them. It's probably not a fit for everybody, but it's been a powerful tool. And I think just having some basic level of understanding of it might help people know whether it could fit into their lives or not and how to operate with it.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. And are you offering your would you like people to come and play cash flow with you? Obviously you don't want
Yeah, I can give
100
you
people in
details on cash flow. And I have a website that it's all available. I'm happy to help anybody in any way.
and all of these links are obviously with the video. Um, and I know that community is a really massive thing for you, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
And bringing all of these different, because the conversation we were having offline was, when we're all working in isolation, we can't make these shifts, but there is this great big sort of cracking open at the moment of for opportunity. And when we start to gather together, so if things that Lisa is saying are resonating, they certainly have for me. Lisa and I have only just met through this summit, but we're definitely going to be in touch and seeing what we are going to create together. So if there's anything in this conversation that's really resonating for you, then I invite you to reach out to Lisa or to me.
I think
And
it's important for us to think about legacy. Like if we're worried about our children in the world, how do we create a good environment for them? And then what about their children and their children's children? And
yeah,
so to set them up well financially too is important. And it's not just putting the systems in place, but educating them, getting them involved in the conversation, building this into a community and a legacy thing conversation, I think is key.
yeah, absolutely. Well, the future is bright, and the future is a little bit different. I think this is a for me this is a great big lesson in just look at things slightly differently. Lisa's obviously taken some time. Thank you for
Yeah.
doing all the work, so we can just do as we're told. Or not, or just grow and be prepared to think a little bit differently, to put your money in slightly different places. Like you say, the rich and the farmers have been doing it for generations, so there must be something in it.
Absolutely.
All right, well, thank you so much for your time
You're
and
welcome.
your
This was
wisdom.
fantastic. It was my pleasure.
I will see you on the other side.